Oh, just love that cool disco music, that introduces us every show. Hi, I'm Michael Daly, and this is East End Community Housing. Christina DeSanti is off for this show, and I'm here solo with Mr. Bill Chaleff, one of my favorite people here on the East End. Bill is of Chaleff and Rogers Architects, and Chaleff and Rogers are award-winning green architects and planners here on the East End, with over 35 years of experience designing sustainable residential, public realm, commercial, and industrial buildings. Bill and his firm has built over 300 energy efficient homes, employing concepts such as passive solar design, state of the art construction, uh, and all sorts of materials and integrated thermal system engineering. That's very impressive, Mr. Chaleff. Very,
fooled you
very,
too.
very impressive. But one of the things that brought us together, Bill, was that we have been in conversations about creating more community housing on the East End of Long Island for over 10 years now, right? At least.
Yeah, at least 10 years. That's
Yeah,
exactly right, Michael. Yes, and I'm proud to know you and be involved with you. It's important work, and the task is huge, and we've got a lot more to do. But I'm glad to be on your side.
What do you think the work is when you say that this is important work and we've got a lot more to do? What do you think the work is, and why have we had so many why do we have a housing crisis today?
We have a housing crisis because of two things. The cost of construction continues to move up and constantly creeping up. I can never remember, I'm out here over 55 years practicing.
Wow.
And I cannot remember when the cost of construction went down. In other words, we can remember COVID. We can remember there was a time before COVID when nobody was sick, but I cannot remember a time when the cost of construction went down. It's been all those 55 years, it has been moving up at more or less the same rate. I mean, doubling every 7 years.
Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. And so that's one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is zoning, and zoning becomes a really big issue because, believe it or not, nobody is out there making any more land.
Right.
We only have what we have here, and we're surrounded by water,
And if anything, we're getting less land because of sea level rise, and is starting to carve out some areas
that we are deemed unsuitable for building for one reason or another.
Right.
And zoning has a lot to do with that, but nonetheless, yes. And buildings, we got used to building them on land.
Right.
There are some places in the world where they build on water, but we're not there. We build on land here. And so, yes, we're running out of it. And even in places you wouldn't think. I got called to do a master plan to help the Shinnecocks on their reservation in Southampton. They have 1,200 acres. And it seems like a tremendous amount of land, 1,200 acres. But it has to solve all their built environment needs, all their housing, plus the other buildings they have for specific purposes, emergency vehicles, a firehouse,
Community center,
all this, a gym, all the things that a community would need, and believe it or not, we're tight. And we're so tight that the conventional and the most obvious solution to try would be to mimic what's going on around them everywhere else or around us or right here, which would be the suburban settlement pattern, which we know as a large lot zoning, which is 1 acre or more. And that gobbles up land at a furious rate.
It does, doesn't it?
It really does. And it makes it then sends the value out of reach of people who are earning less than what wealthy people
Yeah, people who
have,
are earning
Yeah.
moderate, average incomes.
Average
The
incomes,
people
right?
who earn average
Right.
incomes can't afford to buy a house out here,
That's right.
and a lot of them can't afford to rent anymore. Why is that culture in place? With this settlement pattern of zoning with large lots, and why have we had such a difficulty in changing that culture?
Because a lot of other associated institutions are integrated with that culture, and they provide, and so they get locked in, and there's a whole inertia that has to do with even the cost of money. When you build a house, if you're a builder, part of the cost when you sell that house for, let's say, I'm just picking a number here, $250,000, a significant part of the money that you pay to the builder is covering his cost of money. He needs money to operate, and the cost of money is constantly going up. And especially right now, we're in this era with tariffs, what they're
Sure.
affecting, right?
High interest
High
rates.
interest rates, all of that drives the cost of money. And a person who lives out here, whether it's your plumber, your electrician, your grocer, we're all caught in that same trap. We pay a lot more than people who live in areas where people of lower income are more accessible. They can travel to where their services are needed.
They have public
That-
transportation
Right.
perhaps, we're surrounded by water. There's a lot of cities that are surrounded by land and people can come in from all directions.
Exactly
We
right.
don't have that
No,
luxury.
we're on a peninsula out here, a dead end, in fact, and trucks come out loaded with goods and they go back empty. So right away, the cost of transportation, you can see immediately,
Double,
that's not efficient,
yeah.
right? So we are paying for those empty trucks to go back because nobody's going to send you a truck out here without the means to get it back. So transportation is very expensive, and everything becomes very expensive because all the goods and services are subject to these same issues and pressures.
That's a that's that's a, you look at things from 30,000 feet. You can see. You've been studying settlement patterns and things like that for your whole career, and you understand them in a way that most people don't. I mean, you told me before we went on. You told me that we are really a suburban settlement pattern, and I've always kind of called us a rural community. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What's the difference, and do we want to be a rural community, or
Well, historically, we were a rural community.
is that right?
Right. I mean, well, let's it's the British Isles. People from the British Isles came over. This area goes back. The earliest settlement out here is 1620,
Right.
and it was all people from the British Isles, and they came over. Any idea why they came? What were they? Why did they come here?
I don't know. They got kicked out of England.
Yeah, some people did. That's true. Yeah, I mean, going back to our elementary school education, there were people who came because of religious freedom,
Religious freedom,
things like
pilgrims,
that. Right,
things like that. Right.
But if we go back and understand the power of the dollar, that it was really economics, people came over because the world was running not on oil like we do today.
Yeah.
It was running on
Whale oil?
no.
Wood?
Yes,
Ah.
we were running on wood, and England and other countries, they were clear cutting their 100 years old forests for
Okay.
ships.
I see. And they needed to find wood in order to build more ships
More
and,
ships, because ships were then controlling the flow of goods and services, and therefore controlling the flow of money,
aha.
controlling the economy. So yes, the first crews that came here, settlers came as a woodsman and established woodcutting villages, and were sending wood back to England. You know,
Ah.
not just masts, but wood in all forms for planks for boat construction. You know, ship
Oh, that's so
construction.
interesting. That's
Right?
the first time I've heard
Yeah.
that. And it's probably one of the reasons why there was so much conflict with Native Americans too, because Native Americans cherish the environment and see trees as nature to be preserved. Obviously, I mean, Native Americans would use trees and wood to build things as well, but just to be clear cutting in order to, send wood back to King James or something seems like probably criminal to some of the Native Americans.
Absolutely, because they did not use wood the same way we do, or the same way that the English did at that time. We're looking for big planks of wood,
Yeah.
you know? And if you go, in fact, to this very day or the second, if you want to skip over to the Shinnecock Indian Reservation, and you'll see the replicas of traditional buildings, wickiups and so forth, which were built with saplings, 1.5 inch diameter at most, young things, and they would bend them over and create these hoop houses with lashings, and these are incredibly efficient uses of material and of wood. When we take wood, it's amazing how much waste there is if you want to just cut rectangular sections about planks,
Yeah.
right, out of a tree.
There's a lot of waste.
There's a
isn't there?
tremendous amount of waste. So that's correct. The Native Americans were living much more harmoniously with the existing environment. And that's a lesson for us there, and that they are the experts, indigenous peoples are the experts on how to live harmoniously with the planet. And they are also experts at something else that we have to learn, and that is how to live harmoniously with each other. And we really are a civilization in crisis because we are failing on those two counts and other counts as well.
Sure.
And I think the most recent books that I've been going through are really changing our viewpoint of the world and our understanding of how the world works from traditional Western understandings to the understandings of indigenous peoples. And it's a terrific book called Braiding Sweetgrass that I recommend.
Braiding sweetgrass.
And another book, The Language Other Than Words, and that I remember the name of the author is, oops, I said I remember. It's Jensen, and his first name is Derek Jensen, Language Other Than Words. And these are books written to tell us, you and I who are brought up in traditional Western civilization, how that there are alternate ways to look at the planet and how we should live on the planet. And I think that these are very, very valuable lessons. And if we're smart, we will recognize how helpful and important they are, because the way that we are living on the planet is not sustainable.
Yeah, we're burning it up, aren't we?
We are
Yeah.
burning it up. We are digging it up. We are destroying it. We are less than 5%. The United States is less than 5% of the world's population. And we create 25% of the waste stream which means that we are using 25% of all the resources.
Right, right.
And we don't turn it into anything, we turn it into waste,
Oh, my goodness.
right? It's the definition of unsustainability.
Sure.
And this is considered the normal way that civilization proceeds. And we really have to turn that around 100%. And we need all the help that indigenous peoples may wish to give us.
Yeah.
We certainly know they have the knowledge that we need desperately to help us get out of this situation, but we really have to also approach them in a way where they would feel that they would want to partner with us, because we haven't done a good job of doing that up till now either.
Bill, how did you get into the field of architecture? I mean, what drove you? What interested you in the field of architecture? What did you hope to accomplish with it?
I'm happy to answer that. It brings back really good memories. My mother, who was one of the world's most remarkable women, and any good qualities that I might possess, I credit her with.
That's sweet.
She was an English teacher, and a high school English teacher. And if you had been fortunate enough to have been a son of hers, as I was, and my brother, the two of us, you'll find out that it means that at least once a week, you're in the library, a trip to the public library. And the way it worked was we could pick out whatever books we liked, no restrictions. But my mother would also pick out some books and say, oh, these are for you, and this is for Roy, that's my brother.
Uh-huh.
And I expect you to at least look at them, okay? We didn't have tests or anything like that. It wasn't an autocratic system.
It was kind of low pressure, but she definitely gave you the incentive to look at them.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. And talk about pressure. There was no pressure. She was one of those people who knew how to lead by example. She was always with her nose in books. She was reading to us every night when we went to sleep. She was reading from different books. There were stories, there were funny stories, interesting stories, whatever. My brother and I grew up that way, and again, I consider myself extremely fortunate. So one of these trips, I find myself on the way back in the house when we come back from the library, and I'm opening this book, and it is called An Autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm flipping through it for graphics. No graphics, no drawings, no photographs, just text. But I'm about 12 or 13 years old and unfazed by that. And I start to dig in and read. And this was the autobiography of Frank Lloyd Wright. And most people today, if you cornered them and said, quick, give me the name of an architect or I'm going to beat you up. That would be your lifesaver. If you know one name in the field of architecture, that's going to be the name that comes up. And I read with great interest his own account, which has exaggerations and has parts that, are even a little bit inaccurate. But I've since read many other biographies and straightened out all the crooked parts there and gotten, I think, a pretty solid picture. And what intrigued me about his own version is that he wrote about he wrote about why it was important to him, of course, and why the built environment is important to us. It's very simple. We spend almost 90% or more of our time in the built environment, in buildings, in homes, right? And sure, you say, yeah, it's natural that we do that. But the impact on him compared to any of the other arts, right, was powerful, and that's true of us today. In fact, when I came to this table, before I came to this table, I was speaking with someone in the kitchen, and he went on about how important he understood the built environment to be, just for that reason, that it had a powerful impact on his quality of life and what he could do as a child, and then as he got older, the same uh, thing, that either the built environment encourages you and allows you to lead a meaningful and interesting life, or the opposite.
Right, it could be very restrictive, and it could like cut you down and isolate you, and
Right, inhibit
depending
you.
on how
Right.
the built environment that you are in is built.
Exactly right.
Interesting. That's so
From
interesting.
its detail and its texture and color, all the surface little details of things, to the organization of buildings themselves and the landscape, let alone a floor plan of a single building. And so I realized that early on. And the other part that intrigued me that he wrote about in his autobiography was that people were very angry. They didn't like his buildings, and some of them, some people wrote terrible things about him because they didn't like him and they didn't like his buildings, and they said he was damaging, the built environment. He was creating an environment that we could no longer be proud of, or that was weird and strange and difficult and so forth. And that's the part, of course, that hooked me. You know, well,
It's like power. Being an architect, you have power to impact people, right? Did you see the
yes,
movie The Brutalist yet?
not yet,
Oh, you
not
have to
yet.
see it.
But
Yeah, it's
it's on
really
my
interesting.
list.
Yeah.
It's on my list.
Um,
But when he wrote about that, if an artist takes a blank canvas, and puts his paints on it in such a way, if you don't like it, oh, you walk away. You don't buy it.
right.
It didn't get, very rarely would it make people so angry that they would do things to denigrate the artist,
Sure,
right?
sure.
Right. But with architecture, and particularly in his case, he was the subject of all kinds of.
He went against the grain, didn't he?
He sure did. He
So
sure
that
did.
inspired you to become an architect,
Yes, it
and so
did.
that you could have a positive impact on people and their lives by creating very functional, beautiful, and sustainable built environments? Is that, because that's what appears like you've accomplished over
Well,
these years.
I would hope that you just what's going to be in my gravestone there, right? Right. I would hope that I could live up to that, Michael.
Yeah.
But yes, it's what I've been trying to do consistently for 55 years in practice, and I would say that Wright also, in his way, was trying to do that too.
Sure.
Create a built environment that supported a humane society, a society that was rich and detailed and rewarding and meaningful to all the people who were involved with it.
Wow.
That right, that it's the foundation. And again, if we switch gears back to talking about indigenous peoples, Benjamin Franklin, of all people, wrote about this very well. There were, with the early coming of first contact, whites coming here, there was a lot of friction. And there were many, many examples of Native Americans helping settlers, right? But also there were hostilities,
Sure.
and many hostilities where we went into Native American villages and killed men, women, and children indiscriminately. So we try to do really genocide. And the other way around, that there were kidnappings by Native Americans of settlers, children and women particularly. And Franklin reported, he said, there are a lot of examples of women and children who were kidnapped by Native American communities and grew up. They became prisoners there at first, then they became integrated into these communities and lived there. And when they were, quote, freed by other settlers who came to rescue them, or soldiers came, or whatever, they ran away and went back.
They didn't want to leave. They're captives.
They didn't want to leave. They loved the life they had.
Women
were respected. Children were respected. These were very humane environments.
Wow.
Right?
What a story.
Whereas he says the record shows no one going the other way. That when
that's powerful, Bill.
Yes,
yeah.
it's really powerful. So, and I don't attribute all of that to architecture. That would
it
be
was
too much.
Culture and life, and
Right.
the life that
Right.
they found they could live.
That's right.
Look, we have 1 minute left, and
That's all.
one of the things that we may have to do another show, but one of the things that brought us together was community housing, and you've contributed. We have a picture that I wanted to show today of you. One of the things. This was you receiving the East End YIMBY Lifetime Achievement Award in Sag Harbor in 2022. I remember that day, and we wanted to
Yes.
recognize you for all the contributions you've made, and some of the plans that we couldn't show today, and that you and I have discussed about cluster development and getting away from sprawl. And you have so much of that view and that insight that I really respect and appreciate, and I thank you for sharing it with me, and you've inspired me to contribute to this community on understanding community housing, and I want to thank you for that.
Oh, Michael, thank you. That's the highest praise.
Yeah.
And very grateful, very grateful.
Oh.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so
Thank you
glad.
so much.
So let's do another show and just get all of our ducks in a row and all of our graphics in a row, and I want to show some of the developments that you have put together over the years, and we're going to share them with our viewers. So thank you, Bill, for coming in, and thank you to LTV for providing this wonderful opportunity for us to talk about community housing and bring some of the most interesting and respected people on the East End in to the studio.
Yes, housing is the foundation of a civil society, and we have to be very careful that we provide adequate amounts of it, and that they're accessible in terms of economics, and accessible in terms of being friendly toward people.
Yeah.
And we're really running backwards, and we have to correct this and fix it right away.
Well, let's stay on it, Bill. You and I, 2EO, brother.
We'll do it. Just the two of us, Michael.
Thanks again, folks.
All right, thank you.